So let's start your story with you're back in college. You were deferred, and you were just finishing up. So start that story back over where your mom had to sit on the papers and let you know. So
I remember quite well the day that I got a telephone call from her. In fact, I called her on that particular morning, and my mother said, "They're in the mailbox." I said, "Mom, I'm going down right now and join the Air Force." And the guy said, "We just have an opening for one more." And I said, "That's all I need, just one more." So I left that night at 9 o'clock. And I remember telling my mother and dad and the little girlfriend that I dated then, "I'll be home for Christmas. I'll see you all at Christmas." I had no idea what they were going to tell me, that nobody here during Christmas season gets a 3-day pass. But anyway, it worked out for me fine. So that morning that I woke up on the train, and I felt very lonesome. Left. Who in the world could I talk to? And I said, "Oh God, you know how bad I want to direct a male chorus of all those men. You know how bad I want to direct the Messiah." Oh, so these have never been done in the military like that, especially the Messiah. And so when I got to the train at the next morning at Samson, I got off, and a CQ, somebody came by and said they're announcing that they're going to have a talent show, and we'd like anybody who could sing, dance, whatever. So I said, "Shoot, I'm going over there." It was on Friday night. I had to get up 3:45 every morning with the basic training, and the guy was organizing a male chorus, and he said, "Anybody who sings, I'd like to talk to you." So he accepted me, and then as we rehearsed and went along, we sang for that show. Well, our colonel comes up and talks to me right after that and says, "Son, how long have you been here?" And I said, "I've just been here like 2 weeks." He said, "Well, I'm going to retire in about a week and a half. I want you to sing at my retirement." Well, they had to do a lot of arranging. I pulled KP on one Sunday. Oh, that's all. I handed out toast. The rest of it, I got out of it because of who I was or whatever I did and so forth. And the male chorus just kind of came a fun gun. Then comes Christmas time. There's a chaplain's convention held at Sampson Air Force Base. For whatever reason, it wasn't because of the warm weather. It was Christmas time, and we were eating cookies right after we had finished singing, and a man said to me, how long have I been in service?" I just got in and said, "How long?" He was a full colonel that talked to me, and I asked him where he was from, and he said, "I'm from Sampson Air Force. From Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi." And I said, "I bet you have a wonderful male chorus there." He said, "No, we really don't." He says, "We've lost more $50 wasting starting choirs, and their music is in the stacks in this room and so forth." And I asked him how many men they had on bass, and he said around 30,000. I said, "You can't get a chorus of 30,000. Something's wrong somewhere." So along came Christmas time, and the chaplains had told all of us who had just joined the Air Force, "You will not be able to get a 3-day pass." Well, I had 3 brothers that were already in the military, and they were all coming. So the chaplain had mercy on me and said, "Look, I'll get you out of here. You just go." So that nobody knew from my squadron where I was or anything like that. I left, walked to the exit, started thumbing immediately, and thumbed all the way down to Roanoke, Virginia. I got to Roanoke, Virginia the next afternoon around 3:30 in the afternoon. My parents were so excited and so forth. So, Don, on the morning after Christmas, I'm thumbing back to Keesler. I mean, back to Sampson, okay? Because I got to make it. And my brother was catching a Navy flight coming through for himself. So I just might as well go. The airport's on Highway 11 there. It'll take me on up to so and so. So while I was there, a smaller plane landed. It was about 5 or 6 seater. And when they got off to go to the bathroom, as they passed me, I said, "Hey, where are you guys going?" "Oh, we're going to New York." I said, "You going to New York?" Well, I got to believe it. And I said, "Would you have room for another man?" He said, "Shoot, yeah." So I got on there and ate chicken with them and all that stuff. And they, you know where they flew me into? I can't think of that sound. Anyway, in the middle of New York City, Brooklyn, in the airport, little airport, I got out and waved my goodbye, and here I was, no transportation. I got to be on the base at 8 o'clock the next morning. You understand? Some people call that pressure, but I never thought that I couldn't make it. It was always, absolutely can make it. So I started thumbing, went up by West Point and all that, and followed. I know one thing for sure, if you hitchhike the wrong way, you got to come all the way back when you start over. So along about 6:30, I got my final ride to Sampson. I rode from Rochester in the back of a donut truck that took me all the way to the base itself, because they were delivering. It's in the morning, like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and that was some experience. So as soon as I got to the base, the assistant director is back directing us, and the main director is taking a 3-day pass. So we were practicing along, and I'm sleepy, I haven't been to bed, all that. And what happened was the new director said, "By the way, I have 8 to 10 3-day passes. Whoever can give me the best excuse why you need to go home, come to see me in my office." Well, all these guys lined up outside his door, and I got back in line. And when he posted the list, 30 minutes later, my name was on the list. So I just turned around and went and thumbed all the way back to Roanoke. And kind of my life has been like that. Opportunities pop up and so forth. Now I'm later in the base. As soon as I got there, we were helping the police the area to clean all, the ground. And I said, "I've got to go see the Chaplain Reynolds. Can't remember his last name. I've got to go see him because to let him know that I'm there and I'm ready to start." So there was the building, Wing Chaplain's office, and I walked in. You know who was there? Colonel Daniels. "Golly, that is great." I said, "Colonel," he said, "how did you get down here?" And I said, "You worked it out." I said, "Son, I don't even know your last name. I had nothing to do with that." And both of us stood there in awe, like, "Oh my goodness, what is God planning for us?" And I said, "When can we start that male chorus?" He said, Don't get too soon. We don't work that fast in the Air Force and military." And he said, "There's a chapel choir rehearsal tonight at 6 o'clock. Why don't you go over and start singing with them? I know they'd love to have you." So I went over, and at the break time, there was a little blonde-headed girl in there. I started talking to her, and I said, "I want to organize a male chorus so bad, you just not going to believe it." She said, "Why don't you come over to our house? We're having a homemade ice cream party tonight, and all the chaplains are coming. We'll be there. Am I invited?" She said, "Oh, yeah, sure." So I went over. They got the speech of the century. They never heard anybody with prologue that they're going to sell them on the idea that if they were going to be responsible and if they were going to have the world's greatest male chorus, they'll all get the credit. You need to get people to get the credit. They for what you want them to do it. So the chaplain said, "We don't want to have an open. Let's don't get too carried away." But they said, "With you enthusiasm, what we're going to do is we're going to give you $15 a week if you will just recruit people to come to sing in the chapel choir." So I did that for 3 or 4 months. So comes Christmas, we did we sang some Christmas music and so forth. And that's when I went down. But when I came back, they said, "Let me stop just a minute."
Sure.
So the chaplain said, let's hang on to this guy. And so they offered me $15 a week and so forth. And that went great. Now, when it comes Christmas time, the lady who was directing the choir ships out, she and her husband, and they appointed me as the choir director. And as finally, so I said, this is my chance to prove my worth. So Easter comes, and we've been working on Easter music and so forth. After the Easter music on that Sunday night, the chaplains, two of them, came to me and says, Glenn, we're now convinced that you are the right one to organize the male chorus. Good. I said, Wingham said, what we're going to do is we're going to see your band director in the morning and take him out to lunch and talk him into letting you leave the band so you can come over and work under us. Great, good, keep going, do it. So at 12 o'clock or 12:30, I saw these two chaplains coming towards me, long faces. And they said he wouldn't even come close to listening, that he wouldn't trade a trombone player like Glenn Draper for any thought of an idea of a male chorus or anything like that. And so they said, that's all we can do. We can't do any more. And I said, I just started. I haven't quit yet. The battle just started. So I left and I ran over to the PX there at Keesler, from my squadron over to and I was sitting there drinking a Coke, just like, I've got to talk to somebody. A lady comes up and to get a refill on her Coke. She put some more ice in it. And so I said, wouldn't y'all like to have the greatest male chorus in the military? Who are you? And I said, I'm a member of the band, but I want to organize a choir so bad. And she said, you see that lady over there with the white hair and black hat, white dress? Oh, yes. Do you know who that is? That's Mrs. James F. Powell. Wow, she's the general's wife. Would you like to meet her? And I said, man, yes, I would like to. I'd meet her right away. So I went and I started telling this story. She said, oh, Sonny, I have a little glee club for years and come to our home and sing these beautiful Christmas carols at Christmas time. And I said, ma'am, I am your man. If you help me get this started, we'll do it. Well, 1 week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by. The end of the third week, the CQ comes over to me as we're getting ready to eat dinner and says, Draper, you're not going to believe it, but here's an order from the general for you to move to the wing chaplain's office and organize and be the director of music at your own leisure. I worked under no man. But my office was in the wing chaplain's office.
And you were a two-striper?
Two-striper. And the guy that called me today, John, he said, we often laugh to hear Glenn Draper is a corporal, and he orders all these generals around about, I need so many sandwiches for this trip, I need da-da-da. He said, we were all working for you. I don't know how you ever did that, what power you had to come up like a corporal. Oh my goodness. Well, and that was a fun time. And also that she would organize a mixed course and do the Messiah. It's never been done in the military. I remember one of the chaplains said, Draper, you are crazy. Said, people in the military don't like that kind of music. I said, well, I'm in the military, I like that kind of music. They said, yeah, you've been in it long enough to know the difference between military people and civilians. And I said, chaplain, if you put two people on one undressed in an open field, undressed both of them, can you tell me which is which? And he started laughing. He said, go do your blasted Messiah. Well, 60, 70 years have gone by since that took place.
It's still going.
Just believing it'll happen. Where are you going to get the women? And I said, have you ever heard of birds and bees? Of course you get the women. They'll come from all over the place.
So the course began. How did you recruit?
Well, we started out with the male chorus, putting signs on telephone poles. And we started out also by announcing it on the theater scroll when you go to see a movie. Attention airmen, Keesler Male Chorus to be organized. World travel is their ambition and so forth. Come and see Glenn Draper, Private Glenn Draper, what it is. So they did. People started lining up, coming to see me. I can tell you even who the first guy was. Gerald Strickland from Waycross, Georgia. And he was a smack good tenor. Wow. So I thought, this is going to be a dangerous group with people like that. And these college graduates, I would say 3/4 of them were college graduates that sung in their college choir. Can you imagine what kind of talent that was?
And how long to bring these guys together? Over weeks or months?
Okay, I sat rehearsal for the 17th of September. I made sure that we were all in order. They had a huge argument what they ought to call the male chorus. Choral arts or everything in the world you can imagine. I said, guys, call it what it is. It's a male chorus. Not also ran, you can't deny that. No women in it. They'll be invited to sing the Messiah. But I want to call it the male chorus. And it stuck with that name, stuck with us. And the general sent word. I thanked him on the telephone for this very much. And he said, I want you to do a concert about it. I'll give you a couple months to prepare them. And he let all the men leave their jobs at 3 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And they rehearsed for all that time, on government time. You understand what I'm saying? That's almost like unheard of. So comes the concert, and he calls it it's a command performance by General Powell. The place was packed with people. You saw that picture a while ago. That's what they came to see and to hear. That after that concert, I'll back up. There was a lady named Helen Blue came up to me. She stood around for a little bit, and she said, "I need to talk to you. You got a gold mine in those men and male chorus." But she said, "I want you to learn something about life. When you take a bow, we think you're apologizing for something you just done." And I said, "Well," she said, "they are applauding for you. Give them applause." And she was mad at me. She said, "You walk out like you're mad at everybody, and everybody doesn't like you." And so I said, "From this day forward, you call me Mr. Personality. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on." She took the picture that's in there of every guy in the chorus and put them in that scrapbook and did it for nothing, gave to the Air Force. And that was the first time we'd done a performance for the group. And when we started like that week, somebody from Minnesota, a director, sent word to the general that he had a gold mine in Glen Draper. Says, you got the opportunity of a lifetime to have a group like he's going to qualify you for you. Somebody, a columnist in New Orleans, wrote a story on it. He was in the newspaper, that how good this group had started. And Connie Boswell, a very famous singer then, was going to be on a TV show they were putting together, and they invited me to bring the Keesler Male Chorus to sing on that show. You have to understand, that's all in about a week that was happening. They jumped into and then that Christmas, I said, "Davis, we got to do a Christmas concert and record it." We did, and he hitchhiked all the way down to New Orleans to get the group on television. Bob Davis, I talked to him almost all the time. He was my roommate. And
he sang in the chorus with me?
He sang the baritone. Yeah, he was my roommate and sang baritone. And he wrote the script for the radio broadcast later.
So to qualify to become a part of the chorus, they had to go in front of you, or?
Yes, audition. They sent him back. John, the guy you talked today, he's the one who would send it. Glenn Draper's office is right back there.
And did you?
I had a piano.
Okay.
And auditioned these people, pretty good audition. But 3/4 of them were college graduates, had sung in their choir. Wow, what a talent. He was incredible. And a guy like that wants to belong to something that's really good. And it started out a first-class organization.
So within the first month or two, how many guys had you brought together?
Oh, probably 200, at least 200. But I only took 50 in the group. You can imagine the quality that you build up to. And when we rehearsed Armored Christian Soldiers, I've never forgotten that. What a sound came from those guys. They couldn't believe it. When I said, we'll take off about 15 minutes early today because some of y'all are busy, had to do some other things. And they said, no, we want to continue rehearse. We did not stop. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we rehearsed all 3 of those times on government time. And comes the concert when General Powell comes up and introduces us, how proud he was of these guys. And we were going to thoroughly enjoy the concert. Now, he knew I wanted to do the Messiah. And he was kind of in favor of doing that. So if you got the men, do it. You are 3/4 of the way there. That's the hard part, is get, especially tenors. You know, so I took the male choruses already organized and put these women with them and did the Messiah. And that's how that came out like that.
How did you advertise for the women?
Through newspaper. They have put on telephone poles and movie theaters on that. First time in history, but sing the Messiah. It's a privilege for us to sing music like that, or all those kind of things.
Wow.
And like that now. By the way, it was such a thrill to go to rehearsals.
Where did you rehearse?
In the chapel. It's a chapel in the. It's a small chapel. That's where we started from, and we ended up hospital chapel.
Oh, down by the hospital, the old hospital.
The old hospital. That's where we started rehearsing. In that, and so I don't know whether you want to ask me some questions or anything like that.
Well, we continued on. So now, what was the first year that you did the Messiah?
That year, 1952.
52.
Okay, I got to tell you that experience. The chaplains did not want me to do it, and I had to get orchestra because they'd be embarrassed because there are no women. Will come and we don't have the women. Where do you think you get the women? And that's what I said. Have you ever heard of birds and bees? Of course they'll find them. There's Gulf Park College, 15 miles down the road, that has a girls' college, a choir, and here's people all over the place. People want to join something that's going to be good.
How big was the group total?
In that first performance, probably 100. You'll see a picture.
Yes.
I'd say 125. But there were 50-some basses. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, that's a little heavy on the bass.
Yeah, but that's all right. That's the part you want to pull anyway. At least I do. And but I'll never forget coming up to it. The choir was so excited; they were just livid. And
the house was packed.
What?
The house was packed.
The house was packed with people.
How many performances?
2. Well, we did the first one on the 12th of December, and the general stood up and said, before we sang even the first performance, he wanted to thank us for Sergeant Draper arranging this Messiah, because he and his wife Martha were looking forward to hearing it, and he says, we request that you do another performance tomorrow night, because there are more than 1,200 people outside that can't even get in here tonight. They told nobody would come, and here over 1,200 people were turned away the first night that you out. How you like that for size?
That's crazy. And so, for the most part, under normal circumstances, it was volunteer. They'd come in the evening.
Oh yeah, volunteer. Everybody was volunteer.
And so, were requests brought to you to do a performance at, say, for dinner somewhere, for the general somewhere?
Well, the general used to tell you. He said, "I want you to bring your singers." He felt like he owned the singers.
He did.
General, it's fine with me. We'll hook up with him anytime. And whenever he had parties galore, the country clubs, hotel lobbies, and all that, he would take the male chorus down, and we would sing for that.
Wow!
Now, that was going great and fine, and the Messiah was well accepted. And they said, you have to do this next year. So the general liked Glenn Draper, okay? He calls me in his office and he says, by the way, I've had this invitation from New York to go see this musical. And I don't know anything about musicals. He said, I want you to go in my place. So he gave a 3-day pass to me to go. And I said, I'd like to take one of the guys with me, Roger Hinckley, that you saw his picture, just for comfort and talk and so forth. So we flew up there in a snowstorm. I mean, cold, wind blowing, snow everywhere. Went to the show the next morning. We had 2 more days before we were supposed to give up the 3-day pass. I said, shoot, let's go to New York. Well, the summer before that, we talked to him about doing the Messiah. And he said, Glenn, don't come to me about the Messiah. Everybody and his brothers doing the Messiah. They want me to carry their broadcast. I said, yeah, but we have something they don't have. What's that? I said, we have black people. And he said, no choir, nobody around in colleges will have black people mixed up. So they sent Ben Grauer down to Keesler Air Force Base to record the Messiah to broadcast for national television. Then it jumped that group into like respectability to, I cannot believe this. Here it's in October, December, they're doing the Messiah for everybody, and the next year they're doing it on NBC. So there's an old saying in life, don't slow down by the curves. That group did not slow down by the curves.
So, going forward, you were getting invitations from the general. So how did it come about that you were invited up to Ed Sullivan and his show?
All right, there was a decree of something went out to choirs all over the Southeast, south of Atlanta, all around everywhere, that from Ed Sullivan. He was going to originate his TV show in Mobile, and they needed a choir to be on that performance. And everybody on a Saturday morning went to Mobile to audition. And that's when we auditioned with everybody else and so forth. And on that Monday morning, the colonel comes in and says, congratulations, you're going to be on the Ed Sullivan Show. They chose us, great. I knew they would, man, that's fantastic. And it was
How did you
just,
guys get up there?
well, it was in Mobile.
Oh, it was in Mobile.
Mobile. And shoot, by that, and you wouldn't believe the stars that were on that show. Singers of all, I mean, well-renowned people. And I can't think of the name of this guy. He's a very famous tenor, stood right in front of me. And Ed Sullivan just said, we're certainly glad to welcome this incredible group that I just heard recently called the Keesler Male Chorus. Said, I believe it's one of the finest male choruses I've ever heard.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, with that boost, you're going like crazy.
So now you've gone national. Now
Yes.
you've been on television all over. Did the invitations begin to pour in even more so?
Yes. Oh, yes. The thing that's really said it big was Bob Davis hitchhiked to New Orleans on the first performance and took that recording, went all the way to New Orleans, and he took it to the radio station and said, you got to run this. I was at the barracks listening on the radio, and here comes the Keesler Male Chorus being announced. This guy, Bob, in New Orleans. That started that. Then we were so thrilled by that, I said, Davis, we got to go to New York somehow, but we don't want to tell anybody because they will talk us out of it. I'm not going to give them that privilege. And so I know it. We took a two weeks leave. That was our regular leave. And thumbed all the way from from Keesler, all the way to New York. And we'd gone, but most of the time, being turned down by everybody. And on this next to the last day, I saw at the NBC building there, and I saw it, Radio Productions. I said, Davis, that's it, man. That's it. That's where we got to go. So we barged right into this man's office, and he looked up. He was busy. He says, "You need to send my secretary right here." And I said, "My name is Sergeant Glenn Draper. Da 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 da. You're not hearing me." And he said, "You need to see my secretary." I said, "You're not hearing me either. So let's start it." And he said, "I'll tell you what." I said, "We got it. We cannot leave New York until you hear what we've got." He said, "Well, I got 8:30 in the morning for 20 minutes. Do this." So we got off the elevator, Dan, and I never dreamed that the male chorus would be sounding that good on the huge speakers in this man's office. It was unbelievable. That's us. And he said, "Where has this group been?" I said, "We just got started a few months ago." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what, we got to make room for you." And he says, "We have a spot on Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock for 15 minutes. Do you think you could do that?" And he picked up the phone to call the general. I said, "No, don't call him." I said, he wanted, what is Draper doing in New York with his male chorus material? He could be court-martialed or something like that. So what happened was, when we got back from New York, Bob David, we were so excited because they'd already told us we knew that. But I was in my office, and we were afraid to tell anybody because I wasn't supposed to be up there with that material. You know, as I didn't want to kill the goose before it hatched. And so the wing chaplain comes around to my office. It's about 10 in the morning. And he said, "I just had the most weirdest call from the general." And he says, "They want to see you and me within 30 minutes. And I just thought, I'm going to be court-martialed. It's going to be horrible. How will I face my life, my brothers, and all this stuff?" We walked in. These guys were patting each other on the back, shaking hands, congratulations. The general was all. And he said, "Glenn Draper, we don't know how this happened, but NBC has invited us to bring our choir, that's what their choir, and to do these radio broadcasts." And I said, "What'd you tell him?" He said, "We will do it. I'll send a bus every week or every other week and take you, and I'll furnish their field food and stuff like that while they're going to New Orleans." And that jumped to every week. You know, letters poured in from everywhere about a male chorus. It just we hit it exactly the right time in history too. You know.
Yes.
And
So, of all of your performances, which one stands out in your mind's eye the most?
The first one.
The very first one.
The very first one, because we didn't know whether to be accepted or not.
Okay.
What it would be like. And here there was standing ovation for their own male chorus. And the general's bragging on you like crazy. And would you repeat the Messiah? You know, we got over 1,200 people outside that can't even get in. That's some kind of calling.
Yes.
And that was the birth of the Messiah.
So the chorus, the Keesler Male Chorus, was accepted from the very get-go.
Oh, I mean, never, ever away from that. No, they were accepted. And, you know, it was very good. Oh, I had the quality of some people I could not let in the chorus. I said, "These are standards. We got to, just because you're in the military doesn't mean you're going to sing in this choir."
Yeah. So we bumped along now. You're there for a 3.5, 4 year stint there at Keesler.
Almost 4.
Almost 4. What was it like? You knew your career was coming to an end with the Air Force, and you had to make a decision. Do I stay? Do I go?
Okay, here's some things that happened that I rarely ever told anybody because I don't want people to think I'm bragging. We were in Chicago with the male chorus singing for some huge convention, and that was fine. And 2 chaplains, I thought they were chaplains, wanted to have breakfast with me in the military, the Air Force chaplains, and they said, "We want to know if you would be willing to consider coming over and being the director of music at the Air Force Academy, organizing a choir like you have in the military." And I said to them, "I'm just flattered that you would do that." And I said, "Let me ask you a question. Do I have to stay in the military?" they looked at each other and said, yeah, you do. I said, no, I'm not your man. I said, I love you and all that, but I don't want to be married to you. The thing I want to do is do what I want to do. And if I go with you, I won't have that chance.
Yes.
So sometime later, the choir, there was a man from Radio City Music Hall whose mother lived in Coral Gables, Florida, where I was in the Air Force, where I was. And he'd heard of my choir at University of Miami. So he said, I want you guys to sing on the 40th anniversary of Radio City Music Hall. Big thing. And we'll pay you big salary. And we want you, Glenn Draper, to stay a big part of the summer and directly, because we're thinking this might be working out for a job for you every year.
So you were already making your plans.
I was out of the Air Force that I just gotten out.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one?
Was it difficult for you to let go of your Keesler Male Chorus?
Yes. Oh, I mean, I go through the period of depression almost just thinking about it. And that's the same way with me. I'm not teaching now. I miss those kids like you won't believe. And nobody ever told me how bad it's going to be.
Did you left it with what was Mr. Ortiz's?
Yeah, Adam.
Adam Ortiz. And you trusted him enough to leave.
Well, I just knew I wasn't in on the selection. I said, I don't want to be in on the selection committee. I said, you do what you, because I don't want to get the blame if it doesn't work out. And which could easily happen. Oh, this is the Draper's appointment, you know. I said, no, I'm not going to get in that. You choose the person you think will fit you. I'm out of here. And I love you guys.
But you told them goodbye at that point.
Oh, yeah, I did.
That's a pretty good sonat from...
Oh, something else. Let me go a little further. I go towards the end of my Air Force, okay? The end of the tour, I mean, it's all over. You get generals wanting you to come to their base and so forth, and very complimentary about your group. And when I was getting ready to get out of the Air Force, I got a call from New York, from NBC. And they said, we want you to consider starting a choir up here for television, all men. And I said, what an honor. And they said, we're giving you 2 weeks to get here. And oh golly, I see out right then I'm getting ready to go to SMU, where I met Lunell. And I called him back and I said, I can't. I said, I don't feel, what's going to happen? Where will I be 3 months from now? And I'd already had a job to get my master's degree. They paid for it and all that stuff. And I said, I just don't think I can turn that down. They said, you're crazy. I said, we'll find out who's crazy later. Do you know who took my place? Mitch Miller. That's right.
You've met the man.
Oh, yeah. There's a picture of Mitch Miller in my office where you're going this afternoon.
Yes.
But you see what I had, you can't run away from your beliefs and what you're in.
So summarize for me, as we wrap this up, summarize for me, what was the KMC to you? What was it to the men? What was it in general?
What it meant to me?
Yes.
Oh, it was my life. I mean, I've always loved that sound of men.
Was it your first love as far as music? Would you say that was your first love?
Of that capacity, yes, sir. I mean, I played trombone. That was what I went to school on, a scholarship, playing trombone. And they were grooming me to be a symphony conductor. I even got to direct Beethoven's Fifth one time in a concert. But yeah, what I love, male chorus is I'd have to say that's the top of the list.
That's amazing. Listen, Dr. Draper, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. This is captured for not just myself, but for all of us members of the Keesler Chorus that want to people to remember our history. And 30 years
Yeah,
of history.
Dad, I just hope that this leads on, that the male chorus will not dissolve, that it will see greater times coming.
We need one more young man that has a vision like you had, and anything can happen.
But you know, you can't get that out of a book.
Nope.
It's either in your gut,
Yes.
or it's not. If you just got it, it's not, would you like to do this? I have to do this. If you say you just like to do it, I say you ain't going to do it. It's not going to work like that.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Dan. Y'all are so special. I'm not sure I said anything that you might be able to use.
Oh, every bit of it. Every bit.
But it's, you saw that there's a whole thing in how to organize a choir
Yeah.
in the military.
Yeah.
It's in that thing there.
Yeah.
That's